Hey there, you all seem to like my last pointless fact extravaganza, so obviously I'm doing another one. Hero is such an awesome character with so many things worth testing, so I figured I'd just do more of it. But this time I also took direct suggestions from your comments or DMs. Now let's not lollygag, I've got a few interesting things to go over. Now I've been curious about how reflections affect some of Hero's powers. Not in the simple way like how Kaboom will deal extra damage, but I mean in terms of their unique effect. And two of the most interesting unique effects that Hero has access to is sleeping and instantly killing. I'll start with the simpler one. I wanted to see if the effects of snooze would last longer if reflected. So I created a controlled and consistent environment. I keep them close together because the amount of sleep a person gets can vary depending on how close you are to a hero that's casting it. Doing this, I saw no real difference between doing it normally and having Joker reflect the snooze with a Franklin badge. Their sleep times were about 10 seconds each. I got a very slightly shorter time when snooze was reflected, which is somewhat possible since there's technically more ground for the projectile to cover after being reflected, but yeah. Next up, a question I've thought of and gotten several times. Do whack or thwack get stronger if they're reflected? Now, the question of whether or not they do more percent is easy. They do. However, what I'm curious about is if the chance to instantly kill is higher when reflected. So, to test this, I just had to mark down every time the subject got killed from thwack. If they died, I marked it as a 1, and if not, a 0, and I tested this 100 times. That way I could just add every single test together, and whenever the number I got was a percentage success rate for that group. The control test was 35% on Joker and nothing else. I went with thwack instead of whack for no reason other than personal preference. And for some clarification, every thwack was consistent. The damage dealt and the effect are the same no matter where you hit. After doing it 100 times, the success rate was about 9%, meaning I got 9 kills after 100 attempts. And for the reflection test, I gave Hero 35% and gave Joker a Franklin badge before using thwack. And the results show a kill rate of 11% or 11 kills in 100 attempts. Regardless of if you round or not, the difference isn't big enough for me to be comfortable saying there's a huge correlation. Meaning I don't think reflecting whack or thwack does much to affect its killing chance. I say much though because I think it's possible that the damage dealt by whack or thwack will play a slight role in determining the KO chance. Since the KO chance is determined by the victim's percent at the time, I can kinda see that the tiny extra damage from the moves themselves also slightly influence things. Getting reflected won't add too much to their overall percent though, just like a couple extra percent at most. Now I don't really have concrete proof for what I just said, but I think the conjecture is fair, and the fact that reflecting doesn't boost the insta-kill odds in a concrete way is still certainly true. Okay, now I know those are a lot of words I just said, so too long didn't listen. I didn't find anything that supports the idea that the reflector multiplier will affect the insta-KO rates of whack or thwack. It mostly works the same. Oh, and speaking of working the same, in my last video I pointed out how the buffs from oomph and psych up won't affect projectiles or thrown items. Well, eventually, while labbing, I figured out that size change also doesn't affect the power of projectiles. All it changes is the size of the projectile, which I found to be heavily counterintuitive. The damage stays the same as well as knockback, and it seems this is the case for other characters too, not just Hero. While we're talking about projectiles behaving in their own way, the same can be said when you get slowed down. Your animation and end lag will be extended due to the slowdown, but the projectile itself, when summoned, will move at a normal speed. The menu will also move at a normal speed too, and just like with the size change, this fact is true for the rest of the cast. So if you're playing in a casual match as, say, Ness or Lucas, and happen to get slowed down, you'll need to keep this in mind as to not get thrown off by the PK Thunder moving just fine. Or if you're fighting against someone who has slowed down, remember that their projectiles are still dangerous and quick. Now I've known this timer fact for a while now, but I included it in here because, due to Hero's Hocus Pocus, both the slowdown and the size change effects are possible occurrences in the match. So I figured it could be useful to know. Oh, and speaking of Hocus Pocus, I had gotten the indirect question asked if it could be possible to see 2 of the same spell in a row thanks to Hocus Pocus. You see, with how the menu works, you can't see the same spell twice in a row no matter what, meaning essentially you can't cast the same spell twice with only 2 menu pulls. However, I did test it. Well, actually I didn't even have to test it. I happened to get lucky in the match, and... as you see, I got the first Crackle Slash with Hocus Pocus. Then, in my next menu pull, I got Crackle Slash all on its own. Meaning I used the same spell twice in a row with only 2 menu pulls. I was admittedly really happy when I got this in a match, since testing it would have been tedious. Oh, and speaking of being tedious... Okay, I'm just not a fan of World of Light and spirits in general, but I did get a question regarding spirits, so I figured I'd give it a shot. The question is if crit spirits will stack with Hero's crit. Since Hero's crit is basically a part of his toolkit, I did imagine that they would stack, and I was right. To test this, I used the only crit spirit I have at the moment, the one where you get crits if you're at a higher percent or whatever. Now these crits are super weak, and happen seemingly 100% of the time if you're at high percent. But a crit is a crit, and after testing it, there is a damage increase in the crit here. I suppose there are better crit spirits out there, and I also assume that this fact will be the same for them as well. So there you go. While we're still talking about crits, I just want to super quickly point out something. In Nintendo's Hero presentation, they briefly mentioned how there's a nuance between each alt's critical hit. Now, it didn't really appear obvious to me in the presentation, but basically it means that each alt has their own sound effect with their crit, either when they hit it or when they get hit. Now that's probably pretty obvious to some of y'all, and maybe the message did get across to you from the presentation, but just went over my head. But I just wanted to briefly mention that while we're talking about crits. And going back to spirits, yes, Metal Slash will instantly kill metal opponents. But it seems extremely unlikely for Metal Slash to appear on the menu in these challenges. In some cases it seems unlikely, but in other matches, well, it seems almost impossible. In fact, in this match against the Badwagon Spirit, I spammed the menu pulls for like 3 minutes and finally got Metal Slash. Not gonna lie, it felt really good when it landed too. However, for this Wily Capsule fight, despite me definitely not being able to land it, I felt I got Metal Slash a lot more frequently. This rate of appearance doesn't seem to be decided on Spirit difficulty either. Both Wily Capsule and Badwagon are the Ace variation, yet the appearance rate felt really different. For Wily Capsule, it seemed relatively high. Not high in general, as Metal Slash didn't appear as much, but it was still relatively higher than Badwagon. It's possible it's less likely to appear in normal matches rather than stamina ones, as the Badwagon match, was normal, had percents and whatnot, whereas the Wily Capsule fight had stamina. This tweet from Kudagane says they confirmed that there actually is a really low chance for Metal Slash to appear in spirit battles, which makes sense. I just kind of felt like the rate of appearance wasn't consistent. Or maybe I just got super unlucky a few times, as what happened with Badwagon was not the first time it happened to me, just the first time I recorded it. Speaking of Kudagane, for those of you who don't know, both Kudagane and Meshima are what I'd like to call the science doers of the Smash scene, at least in terms of pure data. On screen is a portion of Kudagane's site that features tons of information regarding frame data and whatnot for the characters of the game. I'll leave a link in the description, it's just a great resource. In Heroes page, on the bottom, you'll find a few fun facts that actually answer some questions I've gotten a few times in the past. According to them, Zoom is twice as likely to appear on the menu if you're close to the blast zone, meaning it's actually less risky to pull out the menu when you're close to the blast zone than you think. On top of this, Metal Slash is 4 times as likely to appear if you're by a metal opponent. Well, outside of spirit battles. This proves it's doubly dangerous to use Kuklang in a hero ditto. Not that it's ever a good idea to use that move, since it's basically just a glorified shield break punish for the opponent at that point. Also, something I found very neat was that heal is actually unique from the others, and that is limited in how many times you can use it. You can only use it twice per stock, and you only get one extra use after every stock you take. Now, admittedly, I wasn't aware of all this useful information several days ago, and before that, I tried to test the rate of Zoom's appearance on my own. I basically just tested how many menu pulls it took until I saw Zoom, and I tested it on stage 100 times, off stage about 50, and in the blast zone about 50, then just pulled the average for each group. And my results show that it took half as many menu pulls for Zoom to appear in the blast zone. Another way of saying that is it appeared twice as likely. Pretty cool, huh? Oh, and just for simply being off stage, there was a slight difference in the average menu pulls, but I don't think it's quite enough to truly pull any concrete correlations for various reasons. Now, something I tested that didn't get talked about is whether heal is more likely to appear on the menu if you're at a higher percent. Testing was simple. I did the same method as for Zoom, just one group at 0% done 100 times, and one group at 999% done 100 times. For the former group, the average was about 7.6, and the latter group was about 6.5. Considering the vast difference of damage in each testing group, I don't think this difference is quite enough to decide anything, especially considering human error and just potential bad luck. So, make of this what you will. After releasing my last video, I was off to vacation and wasn't quite able to record any footage or test things. But the thought of how tangible Zoom really is came into debate. You see, in training mode there's the option to show visuals of when intangibility or invincibility are present on a character, represented by the colors blue and green respectively. The difference between intangibility and invincibility is that, with intangibility, attacks simply don't connect, like with air dodges or rolls. But with invincibility, attacks technically do connect, but they don't do anything, like with Kaglang or Superstar. So basically, if your character is ever blue or green for a time with this option on, it means that they can't be attacked in that time. But when using Zoom, nothing like this appears. Well, Kurigane tested it himself using a smart bomb, and yeah, you're definitely not getting hit after takeoff, despite no intangibility or invincibility appearing. What this means is that, after takeoff, Hero's model basically just seems to, I don't know, not exist or something? It's really weird and it's really unique, but it is indeed impossible to hit Hero when he takes off, confirmed. Or maybe even if he just doesn't take off? Yeah, there's this glitch that causes Hero to just not go up. He's stuck like this forever, and since it's after the ascension of Zoom, he's also intangible. Or is it invincible? Or maybe it's neither. Or both. Ban Hero. Since this glitch has already been covered by OKO, I won't go too in-depth about it, but basically it seems that with the help of size-changing items and a timer, you can make it so the people that need Hero will never see him. And you can't win the match. But I don't have anything to add outside of that. Oh, and speaking of add, make sure you subscribe if you want to see more of this type of content, pointless or not pointless. Next video, I'll branch out from exclusively hero-based facts, so if you have any cool facts or have any questions you want me to answer, leave them down in the comments. They can be either competitive or casual, I don't discriminate. Now, it's been a while since I've said it, but stay casual, and I'll see you later.